Welcome to Season 2 of Behind the Burger, a podcast brought to you by New Mexico Beef Council. It's hard to believe we've been sharing these stories for a full year now, and we're so glad you're here with us. Thanks for joining us again today. Let's get into our first episode of the season. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Burger. I'm Carollann Romo, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Beef Council, and I'm here with Bronson Corn from Roswell and past president of New Mexico Cattle Growers. I'm sure lots of other titles, right? But Bronson, thanks for agreeing to do a podcast.
Absolutely.
Will you introduce yourself and maybe start with your background?
You bet. Well, my name is Bronson Corn. I'm the immediate past president of the New Mexico Cattle Growers. And our background is our family I'm a fifth generation rancher from right in the Roswell area. We came to the Roswell area in 1872. So well before New Mexico was even a state, our family settled in down there around the Roswell area. And why they chose Roswell, I'm not 100% sure, because it's hot and it's dry, but it's sure pretty.
It's home now.
Yeah.
And tell us about your operation. You can start from the beginning and then kind of where you're at now.
All right. Well, so historically, for the last, since 1872, I guess, our family's been a mixed. We're very diversified in what we had. We had cattle, sheep, and goats, and horses for a long time. Our family quit doing any horse breeding back mid-1950s. But we very recently got out of the sheep business. I guess that was in 2024 when our family got out of the sheep business. So we're solely cattle. We have a handful of sheep left. I've got a feed yard that I built on the ranch that I live on to try to help us get through droughts. It's not a traditional feed yard where in the sense where I finish out cattle. I built it for cows is what I built that yard for, is to get us through a drought. That's the main reason. And then it opened up a lot of doors. And so I'm proud to say that we have a feed yard along with all of our ranch country as well.
That's really neat. So I don't know that I've heard of that. I've heard a lot of grow yards and then the feed yards. So it's mainly for the cows. So what season in their life are they in there? Just in wintertime or summertime when it's dry, or?
Typically there's generally cows in that yard 365 days a year. The yard that I built is 999 pair, so it keeps it out of the EPA's eyes. But it's not enough to maintain. We can't bring on all of our cows at one time. And so I bring it in ranch by ranch by ranch, keep those cows in for 90, 120 days, and then I turn around and roll those cows out. It's kind of a unique deal. It doesn't work for everybody, but you can think of it as a ranch inside of a ranch. And it's kind of helped us learn how to diversify and be able to keep our numbers to where we can make everything work the way it's supposed to.
And less dependent on the natural grasses and that kind of stuff. So is there, by your location in Roswell, access to feed and stuff is?
So we're pretty fortunate in the Roswell area because we had the most robust dairy industry in New Mexico was right around the Roswell area. There was 92,000 dairy cows within 45 miles of my headquarters. And so the rail system, the feed system, we were set up for it, and we still are. The dairy industry has really had some issues in the last few years, and the cow numbers are somewhere in that 38 to 42,000. I'm not exactly sure the number that there are there, but there's still a very viable number of dairy cows there to be able to bring in the commodities that we utilize.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I was kind of gonna maybe go off script and ask a question. Everyone tells me, so I'm not on Snapchat, but everyone tells me you're on Snapchat, right? Yep. And so you like to post a lot of kind of day in the life stuff, right? And even on TikTok, I've seen some, right? So maybe tell us what a typical day might look like. Of course, there's no such thing, right? But tell us about that. What's a day in the life for Bronson, or how different can it be? Well,
it's interesting. And my wife thinks of my Snapchat more as a a rancher's therapy group is more what it comes into, because you literally have no clue. My wife asks me all the time, and she doesn't know why she does it. Every time she asks it, she's like, I don't know why I just asked that question. But she's like, what are you doing today? I have no clue. I have no clue what is fixing to happen today. It can be everything from a blown motor and a wheel loader to having cows that you got to go catch out in the pasture because they got prolapse. Or it never ceases to amaze me the amount of things that can go wrong in a single day. And I figured, if I'm having to go through all this misery, I might as well let some of my Snapchat friends and TikTok friends go along this misery with me. And I have a lot of people that ask me, because every time I have stuff that just happens, I laugh about it. And they ask me, how can you stay positive and laugh about a situation like that? And I just simply tell them, if I don't laugh, I'm probably going to cry. But that's a day in the life of me. There is never, I can have a plan, and that plan is going to change 10 times by the time dark comes.
That adaptability kind of word keeps coming to mind every time I have a podcast, right? You have to be. You've got to be, everything to everyone in some ways, right? And then a day like today, you're in Santa Fe for your past role, but also still current role. Maybe kind of lead into what your work with New Mexico cattle growers has been.
Oh, man. It's been a journey. You can't explain it any more than it has been something that I never thought I would experience. I have been to every corner of this state. I have been over 100,000 miles in the last 4 years. I have seen the good. I have seen the bad. I have been here at Santa Fe for the 30-day session completely. I've been here for the 60-day session completely. And it will never astound me the amount of people who don't know what goes on in Santa Fe. The amount of ranchers that we have who do not understand why the policies come down on them and why they have to do this and why they have to do that and why they can't just put in this pipeline over here and why they can't put in that storage tank over there. When they hear that you can't do something, they're like, why? I'm like, well, if you would come to Santa Fe and sit into that Roundhouse and go to all these committees and understand and listen to them as they're coming up with their reasons as to why they want to do this, it pisses you off. But at the same time, it really makes you see the big picture of it. And there's no way I could have ever dreamt of doing what I've done the last 4 years if I didn't have a lot of help at home. I had my brother-in-law, Sterling Pierce. He came and helped take care of all the ranch country that I take care of over the last 4 years. My parents, everything else. But it has shed light, not just on me, but on my entire family, about what we do, why we do, and how we do it. And there is nothing more, I would say satisfying, but it's not very satisfying about stepping into a leadership position. But at the same time, if you're doing it for the right reason, which my reason was for my kids, if my kids are going to stand a chance to come home, somebody's got to step up. And my parents taught me a long time ago that if you want something done right, you better step up and do it. And so God pressed on me pretty good and hard whenever I was asked to be the president-elect. I've got more things than I can say grace over. At home, the amount of country that we run, the amount of cows that we don't have very much help. I did not have the time to do this. But God told me that if you want to make a difference, you have to be a difference. And that's the only thing that got me through the last 4 years is my family, all of those who stepped up. And there's multiple friends that I have that I wasn't there for some of our Brandons. It was just, you guys take care of it. Go do it. I got to be gone. So it's a big commitment. But at the same time, if you don't stand up and make a difference in life, who's going to do it? And those that do it, are they going to do it the way that you need to do it? And most of the time, that's when God brings you to something, he's going to take you through it. It hurts and it sucks.
It's not easy.
And it makes you really ponder why. But every fire that I've been brought to, I've walked through it. And it's for a reason. And so I highly encourage everybody to don't be bashful. If you feel led to do something, you need to do it. Because that's the only way we're going to make a difference for my kids, for your kids, for your kids. We've got to step up.
Oh man, I think I always think it's important to mention the fact that Beef Council isn't in Santa Fe at the Roundhouse because we're not allowed to be. But what we are allowed to do is tell the story, right? And so thank you for being willing to be on the podcast and represent us elsewhere. Because like you said, if you're not willing to do it, who is, right? And I always feel honored to help tell the story and help do our small part because, yeah, it's really important. And the beef industry, the ranching industry, agriculture in New Mexico, you know, we do want it to be around for the next generation, for my daughter, for our daughter, for your kids, all that. So I appreciate the work you guys do in the Roundhouse, and I love to joke that I'm glad that Beef Council gets to stay home on that one because that's a strong battle.
Well, you have to take a little bit of kudos yourself because the amount of work, the way the Beef Council has changed over the last couple of years has been eye-opening. There needed to be a reinvigoration. That may not be a real word. I'm not 100% sure, but
it is now.
It is now. But there needed to be some life brought back into it. And that's one thing that the Beef Council has now. And I'm proud to say the amount of work that Beef Council and the New Mexico cattle growers have done, we've made a difference. And it's because we work together. We know we can't do everything on our own. And so having people where you can lean on, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. I'm grateful that we all come together and work together and continue a legacy of what is, beef in New Mexico, right? So that kind of almost leads us to a question. What do you think is the most rewarding part of being in the beef industry?
The most rewarding part? When I wake up in the morning before daylight every day, and I walk outside and you see the sun pop over the horizon, and you see this is what God entrusted me to take care of. And this is what my kids are growing up in. And whenever I was a kid, we were broke. Gosh damn, broke. And my dad used us like we were day work. And we were used that way. And I think in a small part, I don't know that my parents would ever admit to this, but I think in a small part, they saw how hard life was, and they didn't want that for me. They didn't want that for my sisters. And so they used us like that. And we had great times, but we had a lot of not so great times. And whenever I expressed interest in coming back home, that there was a little bit of a light bulb moment. And I noticed that same light bulb moment here the other day. And I've tried to do things a little bit different with my kids than what I went through, and I don't know that I did them any favors or not. But both of my kids here the other day, we were having, gosh dang, just one of those days. It was just rough. And both of my kids, I have a 12-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy, Garrett and Madison, and both of them were there like that. And at the end of it, I said, I didn't even call you guys out here to come help. Like, how'd you guys know that I was out here doing this stuff? And they said, well, we just knew that you needed help. And this is something that we want to do whenever we get older. And it was like one of those, oh, God. Okay. All right. So now that's the most rewarding thing. Not just for being in the ranching industry, but as a parent, that's why we do what we do. We try to make sure, there's some people that say that ranching is just a way of life and that you have to love it to do it, and I say no to that. This is a business, and whenever your kids see the value of a business that they have sweat equity built into as well, that's the satisfying part.
Oh, absolutely. The work ethic and the know-how that your kids are gaining by even just the character to show up when someone needs help. That obviously has to make you proud, right? It's a special way to grow up. What would you say? So if we talk about, you've talked about New Mexico's drought, we've talked about Roswell, but how do you think the New Mexico's climate and landscape shape the way you ranch?
Man, whenever I was younger, the Roswell area wasn't that bad. It was, our typical rainfall was 12 inches a year. And typically it'd be in that 95 degrees during the summertime, not too bad. And the one thing and I do have to say this, last year we went on a trip and we went to Kentucky, or I guess it was the year before last, we went to Kentucky and we went to the Ark. They made a total replication of the Ark. And going through that Ark, they had a biblically accurate timeline of weather in the world. And on that cycle, you can see it all the way back to even whenever Christ was walking the earth. You can see the weather patterns. They tracked it all the way back through that time frame. And so we're on a cyclical pattern, period. I don't care that I don't believe in climate change. I believe in a cyclical pattern. And God made the earth to follow a cyclical pattern. And whenever I was a kid, my grandpa Bronson would say that we're in a 50-year cycle. And I'll be darned if we didn't get there to the Ark, and it is a 50-year cycle. So whenever I was a kid, we would have 10 inches, 12 inches a year. And in the Roswell area, if you get 10 to 12 inches of rain a year in the right time of year, it's more productive than the Flint Hills of Kansas. It is phenomenal. But over the last few years, we haven't had that. And 2010 was the best year I'd ever seen in my life. We had 24 inches of rain. And in 2011, 12, 13, and 14, we had 5 total inches of rain. And in 2014, there was, I want to say it was like 92 consecutive days of over 100 degrees. And at that time, I didn't know what to do. And like a lot of family ranches, we were faced with the decision of, do you sell off all of your livestock or do you bear down and figure something out? And for those people who have been born into a family that has country but never has anything paid off, you can't sell your livestock because you have to make payments. You have to make payments on your land. You have to make payments on your cow note. And at that time, if we were to sell everything, and bred cows in 2011, 2012 weren't bringing $750 for good young cows. And we were faced with the decision of, if we sell everything out, then what? And I just got out of TCU in 2006, 2007, and thought I was the smartest individual alive, and then 2011 rolls around and I figured out I'm the dumbest sunbuck alive. And we had to figure out how to make it work. And so we leased an old feed yard. The Diamond A Cattle Company had a feed yard there in Roswell, and I leased that yard, and we brought all of our ranch cows from all of the ranches into town and stuck them in there. And we were basically to the point where we were just trying to put condition on them to turn them, to try to get rid of them, because they got in real bad shape real quick. And whenever life throws a punch at you like that, there's not enough feed on a ranch that you can put out to make your cows do well. And that's why we decided we would move them all to town. And I can't tell you the amount of people who told me we were dumb. Like ranch families who were like, y'all are dumb. This is dumb. Y'all are you're fixing to bury yourselves. I said, no, we're gonna figure out how to do this because we have to. If we don't, then I guess I'm gonna go pick up a trade job doing plumbing and somewhere else. I don't know. But the good Lord told us there's a way, and it's gonna suck, and we did it. And we came out of that yard in 2015, and during that entire time, we doubled our cow herd because I was picking up all these 650, 753, and 4-year-old bred cows that people were just selling to cabinets to cut their heads off because they had no place to go with them. And we doubled our cow herd in the middle of the worst drought in history. Wow. And at that time, we had plenty of country to be able to run stuff on if we had the rain. 2015, we finally had a little bit of shot of it. You know, we had 6 inches of rain in July and August of 2015, and that country sparked up. And so we took all of the cows out of the yard, but we dry lotted quite a bit of stuff just to be able to kind of let some of that country heal up a little bit. And it wasn't shortly after that we decided that we were going to build our own. And we built it at the ranch that I live on. And it's a tool. And if it wasn't for going through the fire of what we went through, I wouldn't have stuck my neck out to spend $1 million+ on just feed a year for our ranch cows. But it worked for us.
Yeah, extreme circumstances leads to some innovation, right, and some changes. So that's where now you guys have the feed yard for your cows. Yeah, what an interesting struggle that has led to hopefully a success or a learning. Can you give an example of how you care for the cattle? So obviously everything you do is for the care of the cattle, but just maybe one specific example, because again, the goal of the podcast is for people who don't know the industry and want to learn. So what's maybe it's something unique that you guys do, but just an example or another example.
So one of the main things that we do that most operations aren't able to do, and it still revolves a little bit around that feed yard. But we bring those cows in, and like I said, we don't have enough pen space to bring in all of our cows at once. So we bring in this ranch at one time, and they're set up on top of like a rotation type system. We don't. This will sound backwards, and it may get me in some hot water. But I no longer utilize a rotation system on my ranches because you have to have moisture for a rotation system. And whenever you experience what we've experienced, you can't grow grass with 5 inches of rain in 4 years. It doesn't happen. And that's where these pens come into play. Is I don't implement a rotation system on the ranches when the cows are on the ranch, but the cows are on a rotation system to where they come off of that ranch. So for 4 months out of the year, there's not a hoof on there.
Okay.
And so the one thing that I do that is one of the ranches that I have a rotation on is right in the middle of their calving season, which starts here in the next 20 days for us. We calve a little bit later than most people in the Southeast. Most folks start around January. We're in about the middle of February to the end of February before we even get started. But calving out cows in a set of pens, life sucks. Life's hard. But at the same time, the cows are in great shape. The calves get more nutrition than they need, which is the problem. That's why life sucks. Because you think of having health issues on a calf that is standing in a pen that is getting all of the milk and feed it can possibly eat, you wouldn't think there'd be a lot of health issues. But you'd be 100% wrong. Those calves go through more health issues being born in a set of pens than they would ever be exposed to out on the ranch, being born on the ranch. But they come through it with flying colors. But it's a lot of work for me and my brother-in-law, because you're catching and doctoring probably 60 calves a day for scours. Okay. Scours is your worst enemy to calves in a yard. But the thing that we do that is a little bit different for taking care of our cows is instead of a rotation system on a ranch to rotate them from pasture to pasture to pasture, we rotate ranch to ranch to ranch through that yard. And it allows for a solid 4 months at least of not one hoof being on that country. And the increased stocking rate that we get out of implementing the program that we have, it more than pays for itself for the added feed cost.
That's very, very interesting and very unique to anyone we've talked to on the podcast so far. So I'm really excited to learn more about that. And it made me think of, you talk about scours, and we just got back from Nashville and cattle convention. And if you've been to CattleCon, which I know a lot of our listeners are cattlemen and women, in the bathrooms, they always have the commercials for scours. And I always think that's just the funniest thing, the funniest, like, if you know, moment, right? Of if you go, they've got some medicine that is for doctoring scours, and they always try and play some radio ad in the bathroom, and they kind of go, psst. And like, are you dealing with scours? My daughter she's only 4, and she was in the bathroom last week, and she was like, Mom, what are they talking about? What's that picture on the wall? And I was like, well, we'll explain now, but you might not understand for a couple years. But it's quite a, funny experience if you've been to cattle convention. Okay, so we talked about the cattle. What do you think is something people don't realize about raising beef in New Mexico? Maybe something unique that you've enjoyed teaching people here in Santa Fe, or just in general? What's something people don't know?
There's one thing that I've really been passionate about trying to make sure and get across. Whenever it revolves around federally allocated lands, people think that those ranchers that are out on these, what you could call public land, but it's federally allocated land. What people consider us is that we're just out there getting this land for nothing, and we're just out there raping the ground and just destroying stuff. And if you go out and look at a BLM allotment, if you go out and look at a state land lease, if you go out and look at a Forest Service allotment, those cattle are in good shape. The land, if there's not 5,000 elk running around, the land is in good shape. But people don't realize that we have to purchase that land. They do not understand that whenever you purchase a piece of property that has state land on it, that has BLM land on it, we buy that
at a significant price.
It is not cheap. The last ranch that we bought is 60% private and 40% BLM, and I paid $8,000 an animal unit for land that I do not own.
And I think some would say that was almost a good deal.
Yes.
Almost, right?
Almost.
You can pay 10 to 15,000 an animal unit.
Yeah.
My friend was teaching me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're buying the BLM lease for $1.5 million on a parcel of property, I'll be damned if we're not going to take care of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So the thing that I would really like people to understand about, especially in the southeastern part of the state, because BLM is checkerboarded throughout all of the private property in the southeastern part of the state. We get further west and there's large tracts of BLM. You get further north, there's large tracts of state land lease. And that ground wasn't free.
No.
We spent millions and millions of dollars to be able to acquire the lease for that land, and then we pay on it every year on top of our normal payments. And so the fact that whenever you hear people saying that the public land ranchers, and that's a term that just makes me mad, we treat that like private property because we paid for it. And yes, we fully understand that it is public property. And hunting season, absolutely, come out. But those that destroy the land that we're trying to take care of, and then they say that we're the problem, that's what really puts a burr under my saddle.
When you talked about the business versus the passion, it takes passion, but it also takes that business that you've talked about, that business mindset. And it's not even economical to not treat the ground well, right? That comes to the saying of you got to treat the land good so that you treat the livestock good, right? They go hand in hand.
If the land's in good shape, my livestock in good shape, I'm in good shape.
Yeah,
if
your
the
wallet's
land's
in
not
better shape.
That's right. If the land's not in good shape, I got a problem.
Big problem. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think that's a great fact that not a lot of people understand, that you do purchase those.
Yes.
And have significant investment in it. What is something you're excited about in your operation right now? Or if you want to talk about cattle growers too, you can. Just something that gets you excited right now.
Something that gets me excited right now is the fact that the general public finally understands that in the 70s, there may have been 180 million head of cows, but now we're down to 90. And they understand that this isn't something that, this isn't a Yellowstone type situation. The family ranches that have been struggling forever are finally getting to take a breath because the livestock prices, the cow prices, calf prices have caught up to inflation to the point where my children see that this is a business opportunity. My kids went out and got a checking account and an operating line, and they are purchasing cattle off of an operating line because they understand that this is something that they can do. And unfortunately, since the 70s, there's millions and millions of acres and hundreds of thousands of family ranches that have gone out of business. And now people are starting to get reinvigorated. We're living in a time now that has not been experienced. We've come out of the worst drought in history. We've seen the best calf prices in 2015. We saw the best calf prices we'd ever seen. I sold $1,200 steers, and my cow cost was $1,120. Holy mackerel. I made money in 2015, and then I'll be damned if it didn't turn around and go the other way. But there's an opportunity to make money in the low cattle market too. You just have to be smart about how you do it. And the part that invigorates me and makes me so happy is that people recognize, one, that agriculture is viable. Agriculture is an industry that you can raise a family in. The cow-calf operations that have been sucking air for the last 60 years are like, I can build 10 miles of fence this year that's needed to be built since the 60s. There is an opportunity that we've never had before. And people who are not involved in agriculture at all are like, those kids are saying that I've had multiple kids ask me, how do I do this? How do I make something? That's something that my dad has never even heard.
Right.
So yes, we're living in a time right now where there is great prospects. And for us, the next generation, to be able to capitalize on that and finally, not just the American public, but the federal government understands, holy crap, we're in trouble. We have no beef in this country. We have no family ranches left in this country. We have no family farms left in this country. Because why would anybody want to do it? You work 16 hours a day and you pray to God to break even at the end of the year. And now there's kids that are coming up to me like, help me figure out how to do this. Like, this is something I want to do. That's what it's about.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I even personally have aspirations or inspirations from seeing it and seeing it and understanding that there's still hard work, there's still sacrifices and things that have to be made, but you can make the numbers work in some situations, right?
Yes. Yeah.
In the right situations.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's not free, and it's not cheap.
Right.
But if it's something that you want to do, and you said it right, you do have to have passion about it, but it is a business. And if you're passionate about it, you're going to make the business work.
Absolutely. Coming from, I used to work at a bank, but I was not a banker. I did learn how to golf while I was at the bank, though. I don't know if we're allowed to joke about bankers. But
The bank company that you work for just happened to hold my mortgage. So.
Oh yeah, there you go. So but at the bank they always said you got to know your break evens, and that just reminds me, like, it takes passion, but it takes that business mindset, right? You got to know your break even. You got to know so that when there is a drought, you can make money, like you said. It's maybe, margins, low margins, but finally a breath of fresh air. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Failure's okay.
Absolutely.
I've done a lot of that. I failed a lot. But failure is okay because if you fail, that means you've tried. And if you continue to try, you will figure it out. It may leave scars, but them scars are that remind you of what you had to do to get to where you are.
Worth it.
Yeah, scars are worth it. Failure is worth it. Never put yourself in a position where you know you're going to fail, but always build yourself up to where you know that if this doesn't work, you have something to go back on. Diversification and failure is, if you haven't failed at anything that you've ever done, you haven't done very much damn stuff.
Yeah, probably never taking a risk or the right risk. Yeah, we at the Beef Council, we try and fail forward. Yeah. And so we try things. We tried this podcast. We weren't sure if it was going to work, and so far so good. Like the guy falling down a 7-story building. Every story goes by. Yeah. So far so good, but you got to fail forward. It's an important part of life, an important part of learning, and an important part of advocacy, I'd say. So why do you do what you do? Why are you willing to be willing to fail and to crunch the numbers and do all the things? What makes you keep going?
I guess I'm a hard-headed sucker.
I have heard that answer before.
But when I first started off, I didn't want to fail for the wrong reasons. I didn't want to fail because it would make people laugh at me. It gave you that negative connotation. And then And everybody has one of those humbling moments in life, and I won't share with you mine. But once you go through that moment, I'm not going to say you don't care, but you expect more from yourself because now you've got something more to fight for. And whenever I first come back from TCU, I didn't, our family operation was not big enough to sustain my mom and dad and my new family. It wasn't. And so since 2008, we've done nothing but expand and grow. And I'm to the point now where I don't want to do any more of that. I'm happy with where I'm at because I can't take on any more. But at some point, you have to reach down inside of yourself, and it takes that humbling light bulb moment to understand that you can do this. It's not going to be fun for now, but at some point, it's going to be fun. And when I say fun, I mean to the point where I don't have to work 16 hours a day. I can work a regular 10 to 12 hour day and go home. But the satisfying part of it now is not forever, but I told myself that if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to fight and I'm going to bleed and I'm going to cry and I'm going to sweat to grow and grow and grow, and then my kids don't want to come back to it, then I at least have everything that we've grown to disperse to live the life that me and my wife want to live. But now that my kids are like, this is something that we want to do, it's like, oh, thank God. I go through 2 hats a year and 4 pairs of boots, like working my butt off, and now it's like that was totally worth it. And you miss out on a lot of stuff in life. But whenever you know what you're doing is for those that you love and that you care for, it don't matter. Because the good times are yet to come.
Absolutely. I love to talk to consumers about ranching and how that thing you said about the operation wasn't big enough to sustain multiple families, and so that's why you grew. And sometimes consumers are nervous or have the wrong impression about a big ranch or a big, operation. And I always love to say, it's because so many in the family wanted to be a part of it. You have to grow because those margins are so thin. You've got to grow and you have to grow. And then, there's also an important part of you have to expand and grow because there are so many people getting out of it, right? That generational, changeover didn't happen. And luckily it's starting to happen again. But yeah, I always try and explain that bigger is out of survival. And that's how you guys get to be a multi-generation operation. And now your next generation, your kids are going to be able to take over because you saw that writing on the wall that you have to grow because it takes that. So
for some of the folks that don't know how to, because we were faced with that same decision. And one of the greatest things that I learned from the TCU Ranch Management Program was, and the teacher walked in and he stood there and he went like this. He said, you got to take off the blinders. And he said, we open our eyes and we see this. And that's what we see. But until you take the blinders down, you don't see what's over here. And you don't see what's over there. There's opportunities there. And they may not be the opportunities that you want. But they're the opportunities that are going to give you the ability to grow.
That are available. Yeah.
They're available. There are so many places that young people can step into. There's tons of them out there. But it's 15 cows here and it's 20 cows there. And if you get lucky, there's a guy over here that's going to let you run 45 head on a pasture, but you're going to have to help take care of some of this water over here. Like, there's so many opportunities, But the youth they have not been pressed to figure out, how am I going to do this? So the opportunity that is out here now, especially now, because you said a second ago, there's a lot of the multi-generational ranches that now don't have somebody to pass this on to, but they're not going to just let it go. They may be in their 60s and not have anybody around. They've got kids, but they're not there. Go over to them and ask them, can I lease these 2 pastures for you? And if I lease these 2 pastures for you, I'll check waters on all this other stuff over here. I'll go put out salt and mineral. I'll feed cows for you. I'll fix fence. There's so many opportunities, but they don't want that. They want this. Well, if you want to get to that point, you're gonna have to pull up your boots and you're gonna have to work for it. They're not just gonna give it to you, right. But the opportunity is there, and it's huge. But people just have to pursue it.
Well, that makes me excited, and should make young people or people interested in being in it. Not that I don't know if I can call myself a young person quite yet. I'm kind of right in the middle, I think. I don't know, but as a aspiring rancher or a beef industry enthusiast or whatever my many titles might be, that's exciting, and that should get people excited. Is there anything else that you would like for people to know about you, about your ranch, your family, your business? Anything else that maybe when we said, hey, will you do a podcast, that you thought, I better say this?
No. Our family, like I said, we came here before New Mexico was a state in 1872, and we have been through, our family has been through the ringer, through everything. The first of our family that moved down here was in the Indian Wars. And there's a lot of them. When my great-great-grandpa showed up, he had 21 kids. And out of those 21 kids, 19 of them was boys. And they spread out all around Roswell and just went to putting down roots. And back then, there was, John Chisholm, he helped them out a lot. John Chisholm took a liking to my great-great-grandpa. His name was Martin Van Buren Corn. And he saw, because where they came from was in Kerrville, Texas. And so they brought a totally different, you could say, vibe. If anybody knows the Corn family, we're a little bit stubborn, we're a little bit hard-headed, and we're a little bit crazy. But I guess that's why he liked them. And I guess the point of that is if you go somewhere new, don't be afraid. There's always opportunity. There's always somebody who's going to be out there to step up and help. And you do have to help yourself. Getting involved is probably the biggest thing. I've learned more over the last probably 6 years, 8 years of being involved with my community, being involved with the New Mexico cattle growers, being involved with the American sheep industry, being involved with the Public Land Council, going to D.C. I have learned more by taking off my blinders and getting out of my comfort zone than I ever would have dreamt. And I was actually talking to one of my cousins on the phone this morning, and he said, out of every person I knew, you're the last person that I ever would have thought would have gotten political. And I did not disagree with him for a half a second, because that's anybody who knows me knows I guess used to know me. I have pretty short temper, and my hands and fists look a little different now than they used to. But whenever you find something that you're passionate about, I don't care if you want to be a dog catcher. If you're passionate about it, go do it. You're gonna fail at some point. And if you only fail once, you haven't done a whole damn bunch. But don't be afraid. Just step out there and go do it. At some point, you're gonna look back and be proud of yourself and proud of what you've accomplished. And I'm proud of my family for sticking through everything that I've gone through in the last more years than I probably needed to. But I'm proud that I did it because I did it for what I consider the right reasons. I did it for my family. I did it for my kids, and I did it so that this next generation has that ability to not have to do everything that we've had to do. So that's the important part of getting involved. I don't care if it's on the school board, county commission, your state organizations, your local organizations. Getting involved keeps you in touch with what's going on. And if you're not in touch with what's going on, this is no longer there was a saying that was told to me that the biggest detriment, the biggest failure that agriculture's ever had was tradition. And it's true. Just because your daddy did it and your granddaddy did it doesn't mean that it's the right way. And you want to talk about starting some fights. That'll start one real quick and in a hurry. But until you can show, look, there's another way to do this, then you're going to fall right into that same path of tradition. There's a lot of tradition that needs to stay. And I do a lot of things that are still very traditional. We're still very much horseback country. We're still very much, we still handle our cattle the way that we did 100 years ago. But the way that we operate, that's not. There's technology that's out there now that is very beneficial. Just because your dad and your granddad did it doesn't mean that that's the best and the only way to do it. That's if I had something to tell to a young cowboy or young cowgirl that are wanting to step out there and do something, it's take the blinders off, and just because granddad and dad did it, that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it.
Again, excellent advice, and that would probably have helped maybe in all the succession planning conversations that were slow to happen in agriculture, right? They happen when somebody's 80 instead of 60, or however sooner it might have happened or it might have should have happened. But who am I to know? The last question, because you do have somewhere to be, and I really appreciate your time, and I'm grateful for you being willing to sit down and do this podcast. So my last question, my favorite question, I'm not going to ask your ultimate favorite, but you can say that too. But I just wanted to get your current favorite way to eat beef, or even a go-to recipe if you have one.
Man. One of my favorite ways to eat it is the New Mexico style of beef Wellington.
Okay.
You take a good little filet, you take a good chunk of sirloin, and you wrap it in a tortilla and you deep fry it.
Oh my gosh,
And
I have
then
not
you
had that.
Cover it in green chili or red chili or Christmas. Doesn't matter, but oof.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
That sounds like a recipe we should put on the website.
It's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound too complicated.
Oh, it's super simple.
Oh, I love that. Well, cool. Well, delicious inspiration, and now you get to head to dinner. Well, thank you again. I would say thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and tell your story. That's an important part of our industry and an important thing for us. And then also thank you for the work you do to help feed the world, to care for the land and livestock. I have the utmost respect and gratitude for what you do every day. And thank you again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing the story, because the story is something that has to be told, and that's something that I do want to make sure that I pointed out. But we are the most piss poor people at telling our story.
And it's such a good story to tell.
I know. That's the thing about ranchers, about people of agriculture, is we're humble people, and we don't like to talk about ourselves. I've kind of gotten, unfortunately, conditioned to it, and I make fun of myself all the time. I'm the dumbest person I know. But we have to tell our story, and you do a very good job of getting our story out there, so I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're really grateful for the podcast. And again, storytelling is an age-old tradition, right? That is a tradition that should last. And we're just excited to utilize the podcast format. And anytime we can get a rancher roped into it, quite literally sometimes, I'm ever grateful. So
Yeah. I think we've been trying to do this podcast for like a year
now. I know, and I should have came to Roswell. That's my fault. So, but thank you again, and thank you guys for listening to another episode.
Thank you.
Behind the Burger is produced by the New Mexico Beef Council to celebrate the people and stories behind New Mexico beef. Thanks for listening. Follow the show so you never miss an episode, and connect with us on social media for more behind-the-scenes stories and updates. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at NM Beef, and on Facebook at NM Beef Council. We'll see you next time, and until then, beef, it's what's for dinner.